Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor and today we are talking about, well, unsurprisingly, what everyone is talking about at the moment, and that's used car values. Now they have, unsurprisingly, risen again in August, and to give us plenty of insight is CAP HPI's Head of Valuations, Darren Martin. Hello, Darren.
James.
How are you? All good?
Yes, very good, thanks. Yeah, busy. It's been another busy month.
Yes, you and us both, really. But always good to talk to you. Now, I feel as though it's a bit of a stuck record, really, saying used car values have risen again. But it's still a fascinating thing we're seeing here, isn't it? So, just tell us a little bit about what you've seen in August.
It is fascinating. It's interesting actually because we actually getting less queries at the moment than we've ever had before, probably on what's happening to values, because they're kind of going in the right direction for people. So, and people are getting really used to what's happened, which is strange because we're just not used to this happening before. But what's happened in August? Values have gone up by 3.7% at the 3-year mark, which is almost £500. So I think it's £477 on average. So that's happened in a single month. There was a little bit of a lull around the back end of July, and then the first couple of days of August, it seemed really stable. And I thought we were going to be in for a slight movement up during the month, but not to any great degree. From then on, I kind of described it as the market seemed to go on steroids. And we speak to all the auctions and lots of remarketers, and there was suddenly a bit of an uptick in activity, and dealers out looking for cars and buying cars, and a shortage of supply again, and that's driven prices up even further. So yeah, and that's obviously off the back of the last few months where values have gone up then as well. So it's been a crazy month, I'd describe it as again.
Yeah. So that's 5 months of price values then, isn't it, going up?
It's actually 6, but the first month was very, very small, like 0.1%. So it was up, but yeah, since then. So that was with car showrooms reopening in April. There was a small uptick then, but then from May onwards, it's just gone absolutely crazy. So we've seen like a 2% increase. Then we saw 6.7, 4.8, 3.1. And then this month, 3.7. So we thought values would go up this month, but not by as much as they did in July. And they've gone up by more than they did in July. And part of the reason we thought that couldn't happen is because cars are going above list. Cars are getting, if they're not above list, they're getting very close to list. We've got cars where cap clean is above list, new car list. And obviously you've got to put a margin on top of those. It's really interesting, but crazy, as I say. But also the cars that are going up, some of the examples are just, I don't want to sort of be disparaging, but just sort of standard cars, Zafiras, Astras, things like that, Seat Alhambras, things like that went down at the back end of last year, and still sort of carried on going down up until about March time. They've just had a massive renaissance and are now going up dramatically, sort of 10%. Some of those have gone up in the last month.
Yeah. I think you've got some data to show us, haven't you? Some slides.
Yeah, let me share my screen.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see there, that's what we have our live products where values move through the month, but they culminate in a monthly figure for our monthly subscribers. Well, I will say that we really need to be a live subscriber in times like this, because we're putting values up 3, 4, 5 times a month for specific models at different times. So you can see there the 2% movement in red. That's what happened in April. So that was May. That's May's monthly figure. That then went 6.7%, 4.8, 3.1, and then 3.7% up. So it's gone really crazy during that time. So that adds up to over 20%. If you think about what should have happened during that time in more normal times, which you can see by the 2019 bars there, it could have dropped by sort of 5, 6, 7% during that time. So dropped by that rather than going up by 20%. So you've got about a 25 almost 25-30% swing from what would normally have happened. And cars have gone up in value. Even sort of those standard cars I mentioned have been going up by £3,000, £4,000, £5,000. I don't think we'll ever see this again. I think values will stay strong for a while, but I don't think we'll see anything like this again. We've certainly never seen it before.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. That's what's happened over the last few months. This is the cumulative graph. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see that.
Yeah. So you can see all of the previous years, the pattern is very similar. The lines are following a similar trajectory. We would expect that values would drop by between 3 and 5% for a fairly normal year. This measures 3-year-old cars at the start of the year, and then the same type of vehicle at the same age at the end of the year. So you've got no new models coming in that can push the values up. So between 3 and 5% would be normal. You can see there's been some strong years, so it's not unheard of for values to go up over the course of the year, full year. But for values to go up by 23% up until this point, you can see we've had to change we've had to change the axis. So and it's just seasonality's out of the window, as we've said before, and it's just gone completely crazy. And even if values drop away towards the end of the year, which I actually don't think they will, if they do, then we're going to be still nowhere near any of those other years.
No, well, that was going to be my next point, because as we all know, it's a bit of a cliche to say, but what goes up must come down, and values will come down. But because of the problems we're seeing in new car supply, it's not going to be a dramatic drop off, is it? It's probably going to be quite gentle. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think the values are going to stay relatively high. I don't think new car supply is going to be back to normal until well into 2022, and probably the second half of 2022. And even then, some models are still going to be affected. There are certain brands that are basically saying you can't order these cars because our lead times are longer than 12 months. So yeah, I don't think it's going to get, it's not going to be the supply to come through, even if demand drops away with maybe the end to furlough, economic situation changing. Even if demand dropped, supply levels won't be to the extent that they'll cause values to drop dramatically. So I think it would be a small drop off if it happened, maybe some sort of normal seasonality, but I don't even think that's going to happen at the moment. We're predicting that values will probably go up again next month. You've got cars that are above list, as I've mentioned, and people are paying that for them. Consumers are paying above list, and maybe they'll go in for a new car in September and realise they can't get one, and we'll pay for a used one if they can get the used one, because they're hard to come by. The trade volumes that we're seeing in the market are down, and that's not because of a lack of demand, it's because of a lack of supply. So conversion rates at auction are up, and those cars, there's just not enough of them out there, really. So there's dealers battling for stock, especially for cap clean cars, cars in good condition. There's a real sort of battle for those, and lots of bids for them. I'll just show you the last slide. So this, sorry, it's a little bit messy, but it shows the moves in the last 6 months at 3 years, 30,000 miles, the biggest movers in percentage terms. So you've got the biggest mover there, the Toyota Auris Hybrid, in the last 6 months has gone up by 47.7%, which is over £4,600 on average across that range.
I mean, that is absolutely extraordinary, isn't it?
That car went down last year off the back of hybrids not being so popular, hybrids being fairly expensive compared to petrol cars, a drop off in the private hire market, that type of thing. But you've got some aspirational cars in here like the MX-5, the C-Class Cabriolet, but then you've got the Mocha, which has gone up by 44%, or £3,600. Zafira, Cougar, all £5,000 for a Cougar. So if you owned a Cougar in 6 months, that's what's gone on the price. If you wanted to sell it now, it's really astonishing times. As I say, we're not getting so many queries on it as I thought we would, because I think people are accepting of it. But the main query we're getting is, as you've asked, what happens next? When will values drop away? Because if new cars are delayed, and they want to offer, the dealers want to offer a price for a part exchange now, then, and you can't get the new car maybe till the back end of the year, and they're having to sort of stand on a part exchange value, they're sort of saying, what is going to happen to that part exchange value? Is the market going to drop away? And we're a guide, but I don't think they are going to drop away, not particularly highly anyway. There's certainly, I don't think, a crash coming because of those supply levels, as I've said.
Yeah, and one figure which really does leap out there is the Mercedes-Benz V-Class, isn't it? Nearly £11,000. I mean, presumably that is like the private hire market, who are perhaps they're getting more more customers who are now getting out and about, and they these companies need to buy some stock, presumably.
Yeah, I guess so, or people buying it for sort of staycations and that type of thing. So yeah, there's definitely been a theme there. I don't think the California's on there, but the California went up considerably over sort of the year before that. So there's lots of those sorts of bigger MPVs, those type of lifestyle vehicles that have gone up over that period of time. But yeah, I mean, that's an astonishing amount, isn't it? £11,000. It's a diesel as well, and so there's no anti-diesel rhetoric in the used car market. There's a lot of diesels on that list, as you can see. So it's all fuel types. There's even an electric vehicle on there, the Kia Soul electric. So electric vehicles that are expensive anyway, so that dropped last year, but that's now come back as well by over a third of its value. So there's all sorts of cars on there and all sorts of fuel types.
Well, put it another way, the V-Class has gone up in as much value as buying a brand new VW up, basically, isn't it? I mean, it is just it is absolutely extraordinary. But when you do look at that list, other cars like the Vauxhall Mocha, I mean, if you want an example of how crazy things are at the moment, that is a car that is traditionally there's been huge supply of, particularly with fleets, large number of PCPs. That car, you see them everywhere, don't you? And yet there's clearly a high demand for them, which is pushing the prices up. So yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. That's why it's gone up so much, is because there's been plenty of them around in the past, and it actually looks good value because the values were quite low before for those types of vehicles. So yeah, a typical sort of, as you say, fleet rental vehicle, something like that, a bit like the Zafira, Astras, those types of vehicles. So they were very reasonably priced. And they've had room to go up and still look to be a fairly decent price for them. So they've had that room. So they're not getting close to list on the late plates. So there has been that room. So you look at that maybe compared to an SUV, sort of a different type of SUV, and then maybe they do look good value. So that's why they've carried on going so much. Certainly, MPVs are. That's one of the sectors that have gone up the most over the last month. And you think about staycations, you think about the fact that they dropped in value quite a lot previously. They've had a bit of a recovery and have gone up in value. So it's in the last month, as I said, Seat Alhambras, Zafiras, just gone crazy, really.
Well, thank you for showing us that.
Pleasure.
Just a couple of other questions. I mean, I've been talking to a few dealers, and you see this on the forums as well. Some dealers are a little bit sort of questionable about, they're raising a few questions about how high the values are. And a few of them are saying, look, it's all well and good, but if customers stop buying cars, the values will absolutely plummet. But the thing that we're seeing here, and we're seeing it in the data that you showed, customers are still paying these high prices. They may be aware of the fact that prices are high, but they're being forced down into this route, aren't they? They're having to buy used cars, and it seems as though they are pretty happy paying high prices.
Yeah, I think I guess they're happy that their car that they've got has gone up in value, so they're only having to pay the difference. Some of maybe even cashing in and buying something smaller, a city car or something like that for those more local journeys. So yeah, it's I think there's a bit of they're surprised that the values have gone up by so much, and we're just reflecting what we see. We're not setting these prices.
Yeah.
I went to a dealer yesterday actually, and I said where I worked, and he goes, "Oh, it's your fault, is it, that these values have gone up?" I said, "It's not our fault. We're just purely reflecting." I mean, it was tongue in cheek, but we're obviously reflecting what we see. Consumers are paying it. It's been in the national press now about what's happening with inflationary values on cars, and I think people are now prepared to pay it. And if you walk in and you procrastinate and you go back the next week and that car's gone up in value, then you've got to pay it. And I think they're kind of realising that now. The car buying services are paying top whack for cars. Dealers are fighting for those cars because they want to retail the part exchanges. They don't just want to sell a car, they want the part exchanging so that they've got another car because they can't get the stock. So it's kind of a perfect storm at the moment. But yeah, they are paying the prices, and some dealers were a bit slow to put their retail prices up. But off the back of the trade prices, they've pushed their retail prices up, and they've seen that they're selling at that, and their margins are good. They're making good money.
Yeah. Finally, Darren, just looking ahead to September and your October monthly figure, it's probably going to drop a little bit, isn't it? But probably still over 3%. What do you think? So it won't be. So values will go up. I don't think they'll go up by sort of the 3.7 or the 3.1 we've seen. But I didn't think they'd go 3.7 this month. So it is really difficult to predict at the moment. But there's not going to be load of stock coming back because of the shortage of the well-documented semiconductor issue, shortage of new cars, shortage of part exchanges and fleet returns off the back of that. And I think demand will continue to stay strong. So I would be predicting an increase again during September. Put a figure on it, I don't know, 2%, but I've got this month wrong. So it may go by more than that. But certainly the signs are, because we cut off for our monthly value already, because we published today for the September values for monthly subscribers. And already since we cut off, we've been putting values up. We've looked at cars today that since then are still going up in value. So it's certainly not end in sight at the moment. Yeah. Well, even if you get it a little bit wrong, we don't blame you. It's hardly a normal time we're in. So, but that was some fantastic insight there, Darren. As always, really insightful. Thanks so much for coming on. It's a pleasure. Well, that's it for today's Car Dealer Live. See you again very soon. Bye-bye.